All right, let's talk about something really interesting. There's this quiet revolution happening in, of all places, the luxury fragrance aisle. You know, that old familiar wall of his and hers is starting to crumble. And in its place, we're seeing a whole new visual language for what it means to smell amazing. For as long as most of us can remember, this is what buying perfume looked like. It was a totally binary world. On one side, you had the pink bottles, the curves, the delicate gold script. And on the other, dark glass, heavy chrome, all sharp angles. The whole thing was designed to be super simple, so you could just sort yourself into the right box. But that clear-cut division, well, it's starting to look like a relic, something that belongs in a marketing museum. And make no mistake, this isn't just some small cultural shift. This is about serious money. We're talking about a unisex fragrance market that's projected to be worth almost $34 billion by 2031. I mean, a number like that tells you this is a fundamental restructuring of the entire industry, driven by a huge opportunity for brands who are willing to play by a new set of rules. So first things first, let's get into the why. Why is this happening now? We're really witnessing the end of an entire era of marketing, and it's forcing a massive strategic pivot for the whole industry. What's so fascinating when you look at this timeline is that gendering perfume is actually a pretty new idea. You know, for a long time, fragrances just came in these simple, functional, unisex apothecary bottles. It was really the madmen of the mid-century who invented the whole pink and blue divide, mostly just to sell more stuff. Of course, we saw a major crack in that wall with CK1 back in '94. That was a huge moment. But the real tipping point, that was 2018, when more than half of all new fragrances were launched as unisex. So, who's the engine behind all this change? Well, what's interesting is it's not really the brands leading the charge. It's a whole new generation of consumers who just have a completely different set of values and expectations. And the data here is just crystal clear. A full 40% of Gen Z consumers actually prefer gender-neutral products. For them, buying a fragrance isn't about performing a gender role. It's about self-expression. They're picking a scent because of who they are, not which demographic box some marketing team told them to check. This quote really hits the nail on the head. It captures the whole shift in values. Younger consumers, they're just naturally skeptical of old-school marketing. They care about inclusivity, and they demand authenticity. So for them, sticking with these obviously gendered packages doesn't just feel a bit dated, it feels inauthentic. And in today's world, that's a huge commercial risk. And it actually goes even deeper. You've got this cultural backlash against stuff like the pink tax, that old trick of charging more for products marketed to women. And then there's a totally practical reason. In the age of Instagram and TikTok, these clean, minimal, architectural bottles just look better. They're more photogenic. They perform better on your social feed than the old, fussy gender designs.
Okay, so we've covered the why. Now let's get into the how. How are brands actually creating this new gender-neutral look and feel? Well, it pretty much boils down to 4 key design choices that, together, create a whole new visual language.
First up is color. The old playbook of pastels versus dark, moody colors is just gone. It's been replaced by this really sophisticated neutral palette. Think whites, sand, stone, muted greens. And here's the crucial thing. These colors don't tell you who you're supposed to be. Instead, they create this beautiful blank canvas for you to project your own identity onto the product. Second, let's talk about shape. Brands are moving away from these really literal metaphors for the body. The hourglass curves versus the broad masculine shoulders. Now it's all about pure architecture and sculpture. We're seeing these clean cylinders, soft rectangles. They're designed to be beautiful objects that you admire on their own terms, not shapes that are supposed to look like a body type.
And third, typography. Say goodbye to the flowing, delicate scripts and the big, bold, sporty block letters. The new luxury standard is a clean, minimal sans serif font. It's often small, really restrained. The label isn't trying to be a marketing headline anymore. It's just a simple identifier, and it communicates that feeling of luxury through its sheer understanding.
And finally, material and finish. This one is all about how the bottle feels in your hand. We're shifting away from those high-gloss lacquers and the super shiny Mirachrome and moving towards materials that just feel more honest. Think about matte frosted glass, warm brushed metals, raw wood. That tactility, that feeling, signals a really modern and inclusive kind of luxury. So, all right, let's make this a little more concrete. I want to look at a few brands that are just absolutely nailing this new design language. First up, you've got to talk about Byredo. They're kind of the minimalist archetype. I mean, their bottle is just a master class in restraint. You see that pure architectural shape, a perfect glass cylinder, and that simple magnetic black cap. There is nothing here that signals gender. And what Byredo proved is that this neutral design can absolutely command top-tier ultra-luxury prices. Then you've got Le Labo, who went in a totally different direction with their anti-bottle. It looks like something straight out of a science lab, but their real masterstroke is that personalized typewriter-style label. By literally putting your name on it, they just sidestep the whole gender question entirely. It's not for a man or a woman, it's for you. It's genius. And finally, Maison Margiela's replica line. This is so brilliant because it uses storytelling. The bottle itself looks like a vintage apothecary jar, but the magic is in the names: Jazz Club, Beach Walk. The fragrance is meant to capture a universal memory or feeling, and since memories don't have a gender, the packaging doesn't need one either. Now, this whole trend doesn't exist in a vacuum. And here's where it gets really powerful. This shift connects perfectly to another massive movement that's reshaping the luxury world: sustainability. I like to call this the double win strategy. Think about it. When a brand decides to use sustainable materials, like recycled glass or plastics, those materials naturally have a raw, authentic texture that just happens to be inherently gender neutral. And here's the kicker. The same Gen Z and millennial consumers who want inclusivity are the exact same ones demanding sustainability. So it lets brands hit two huge targets with one single design choice. And if you need any more convincing, just look at these numbers. You've got the massive market for unisex fragrances and an even bigger one for sustainable products. By adopting this kind of gender-neutral, eco-friendly strategy, brands can tap into both of these enormous, growing markets at the same time. At this point, it's not really an option anymore, it's a strategic imperative. So, all of this leaves us with a final, really fascinating question to think about. For centuries, luxury was all about exclusivity. It was defined by who it kept out. But now, as the most forward-thinking brands are designing products to be for everyone, well, it forces us to ask, what does luxury even mean anymore? Maybe, just maybe, true luxury today isn't about who you exclude, but about how beautifully you can include everyone.